Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Motorsport Show, direct from the Alfred Hospital. It's been a fortnight of the flu, the cold, the flu. I'm Gerald McDornan. I've dragged myself out of my deathbed to be here just for you at home, as has my boyfriend, Phil Branagan. Welcome, Phil.
When you say that, you don't mean anything untoward's going on. No, we're just friends, but yeah, we've both been under the lurgy this weekend and this week, and we're doing the best we can. So we'll try and get through the hour.
That's the great thing about internet TV, Philip. Of course, not the big budgets of the major stations, but we also...
No, really?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
But we can do what we want and even turn up if we're crook.
And the show must go on.
And the show must go on, absolutely. Well, look, and on the show, we've got to say a heartfelt thanks to everyone for watching the first episode. It was tremendous response. Not quite as big as a couple of other blokes up in Queensland who have got a very slick, very high dollar, very well produced show and with great content similar to ours. But we still had a very good response.
We did. Lots of good messages. So thanks for all that, folks. It's been very gratifying. It's good to be back for week 2, and we intend to go further if you don't get bored with us.
And of course, we'd love to thank Supercars for blocking us a few times for using their footage, and Nathan for the phone call, mate. It was really good, but it's okay. We can use footage, as I've discussed with Nathan.
What are we talking about tonight?
We've got plenty on the show tonight, Philip.
Good.
A whole host of drag racing, but the big thing, of course, tonight's agenda's Supercars. After 9 wins in 10 races, of course, Ford's dominant Mustangs have had their wings clipped ahead of this weekend's night race in Perth. And there's plenty to talk about that there.
Well, there would be anyway, because it's a different format this weekend, night racing. The track's been resurfaced, so there's a lot to talk about anyway. This just gives us an added layer of what's going to happen this weekend in the West. Always a good race weekend. The fans in the West, some of the best in the country. Naturally,
the Ford fans are up in arms over what's gone on. The Datsun and the Holden fans, I think they're reasonably pleased that they think everything's going to come back to the field, but we shall see on that.
Anniversary today, of course. May the 1st, one of the legendary dates in the history of Formula One. Everybody remembers where they were 25 years ago when at Imola there was a crash that claimed the life of one of the greatest drivers we've ever seen in the sport, Ayrton Senna. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. And we encourage you to get on Facebook Live. Tell us where you were and what was your reaction when you found out that dreadful news 25 years ago in Formula One.
And that is the great thing about this format that we've got here at the Motorsport Show. We want to interact with you, the fans, at home. So if you have some comments to make, either about the Mustangs, the wings getting clipped, or, of course, Ayrton Senna passing, we can read your comments. So please send us questions, send us comments.
Tell us who you think's going to win this weekend in Supercars.
Yep, and we can tell you what we think as well.
Not the only passing in the last 2 weeks, though, Gerald. There's been another loss to the sport. One of the names from that was big 30 years ago.
Roland Ratzenberger.
Well, Roland Ratzenberger, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. But beyond that, there was the passing of somebody else. Wasn't there?
Who?
Dr. Feelgood.
Oh. Yeah, sorry, Phil. We're skipping ahead.
Oh, okay.
Really
all right. We'll talk about that in a little bit then.
No. It is. It's sad news. Yes, you're right. Big person in the news back 32 years ago with the breakup of Holden and Brock was Dr. Feelgood, was Eric Dowker, and that's the front page of the Sunday Observer. The story written by David Seagull back in 1987. That photo was taken at the Wellington Street race in New Zealand, which HDT came first and second in. And Eric Dowker, the controversial name behind the energy polariser that Peter Brock had, that eventually led to his split, unfortunately passed away on Sunday the 14th of April.
And it was a very controversial time in the sport. I missed a lot of that. I was living overseas at the time, but it was it was a real earthquake in touring car racing. Brock was such a big name. The Holden dealer team was so powerful then. And of course, Dowker was heavily involved with Brock, the energy polariser, as you said. People will always have their views about did it work. Some of the car journos said yes, it did. Most of the car journos said, well, we're not quite sure about that. But that led to the end of the relationship between Brock and Holden, which was eventually, of course, patched up, and Peter returned to the official fray some years later.
Paul Gover. I don't know why it works. I don't know how it works, but it works. PG, he'll hate me for saying that, but that's what the article said at the time. I got to meet Dr. Feelgood, Eric Dowker. Sadly, the morning after Peter Brock had passed away, I had to jump on the plane and head to Perth to look after things from a Holden perspective and meet with the family and also Peter's partner and deal with the media over there. And I got off the plane in Perth first thing Saturday morning, and I got a message from Plastic Tim Pemberton and said, look, Lewis Brock's on the plane. Grab him and have a chat to him.
It's Peter's brother?
Yep, Peter's brother, and sort the media out before they get to Lewis and start hounding him. So I saw Lewis there and we had a chat, and it was rather sad. And Eric Dowker introduced himself to me, and to me he seemed like a very nice, gentle person, and obviously had a lot of care and was loved by the family. But one of those moments, he did say at that particular point in time, Gerald, I'm very happy to talk to the media, about Peter. And I didn't think it was the right time, and I said, look, Eric, thank you very much. I appreciate the offer, but let's just leave it as the family talk to the media at this point in time, and maybe at a later date you can have a chat.
Yeah, and look, we always look at the motorsport angle of these things, and Eric Dowker was involved in Brock, and that's why we're talking about him here. But let's not forget, families lost a loved one, and of course a lot of people he would have been treating for a long period of time through his medical career have lost somebody in whom they placed their trust and their treatment for so many years. Absolutely,
and I'm pleased to say that the online reaction was pretty good.
Yeah,
we posted it first on the Motorsport Show page on Facebook and also on Twitter. The reaction we got from people was pretty good. Sadly, there are a few people out there who said, "Oh, look, he killed the career of Brock" or whatever. At the end of the day, Peter made his own decisions,
right,
and that was the big breakup at the time. They won Bathurst, though, in '87. Let's never forget that.
Yep.
It was the first World Touring Car Championship round at Bathurst, and they did win it. It was the only World Touring Car Championship round at Bathurst.
We'll talk about that maybe a little bit further down the track. What a weekend that was. Again, I watched it from afar because I was away. I was out of the country living somewhere else at that stage of my life. But it was a huge era in Australian touring car racing, and it continues to this day. So rest in peace, Dr. Eric Dowker, and to all of his friends and loved ones. You have our deepest sympathies, and hope things carry on.
Yeah. This week, now let's look at a few different things, and I'll just roll up and down, just seeing who's joined us. Tish, hi Gerald, go you good thing. You know it, mate. Good guy, Tony Heasley. Wish me luck. I'm racing at the Bend for the first time this weekend in Super TT. Good luck, Tony Heasley, in that. David Driscoll, who was the winner of our Larry Ormsby book. And David, I've still got your book on my kitchen bench at home. It is already wrapped up and addressed to you, so it is coming to you. But he was the winner last time. NASCAR, Philip.
Yes.
Talladega.
It's always bigger than 10 Bears, Talladega. It's just one of the iconic race meetings of the year, isn't it?
The super speedway at Talladega. Talladega Nights, the great film, of course. But Talladega was seen in Days of Thunder as well. But it is just the greatest place. And NASCAR made some changes to the cars this year. They changed the restrictor plates. They made them a little bit different. The cars were faster straight out of the box. They also changed the rear wings, and they did between the first and second sessions, they made some more adjustments, And the cars went faster again. They went from 202 mile per hour average lap to 204 mile an hour, just like that. It was terrific. But Talladega, the super speedway, it is always a wild weekend, and it just can't get any wilder. It even starts off wild. Cop this from the bloke who actually gave those famous words before the start of the big race.
Drivers, start your engines!
There's a man who's had too many espressos before they gave him the microphone.
I think he's been on the shine.
Well, he might have been on the shine, and it's appropriate in that part of the world. And you and I have been lucky enough to go to some NASCAR races, and sometimes from a distance you watch those things on TV and you think, what the heck is going on? But if you're there and you're in context, those things all seem pretty much appropriate at the time, don't they, Gerald?
Oh, absolutely. But what a great thing. Now, let's roll the vision of the great racing from the weekend, and pack stands at Dega. Fantastic to see. Green flags waving. And the Chevys. Ty Dillon, Richard Childress' grandson, won the first stage there of the 500-mile race. A good first stage. Then the next stage went to another Chevy driver in Chase Elliott, winning stage 2. But it's stage 3, and I hate the stages. Stage 3, really where it all started happening with the accidents. And here, the 17 went in on the start of the last lap. That was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And this is the last lap. The caution didn't come out until this point, and there's always the big one, and there goes Kyle Larson upside down and around in the 42, and Chase Elliott, the son of Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, the man who set the world's fastest average lap speed ever, Bill Elliott. His son, Chase Elliott, won that, and that was Chevrolet's first win of the season.
And how often do we say that in early May? Never.
It really is almost like supercars. It's almost like supercars at the moment. It's been quite incredible. And it's great to see Chevy get up there. The Camaro, I think, looks terrific as a race car. But surprising that they haven't won races so far this year.
But you can bet the Chevrolet teams are working day and night to make sure that whatever needs to be done to those cars will be done, because that's the nature of NASCAR. If they need to make changes, they do it on the run. It's not a long drawn out process, and it's something that seems to be ingrained. It's something that's explained well to the fans. So I don't think that's the last Chevy win we're going to see for the season by a long chalk. There will be fightbacks, of course, from the Ford and Toyota camps, but still some great racing. And again, unlike you, I'm not mad about the stage formats. I'd rather see them just let them go for 500 miles, but you and I are old now, and this is what the young people like to see, apparently.
Yeah, the stages are absolute rubbish. And quicker than NASCAR realises that, they're better off introducing different format races on the weekends. When you go to the short courses, rather than sitting there for 7 hours and 5,000 laps around Martinsville, or Bristol's pretty cool, but Martinsville, I can't understand why they can't introduce different heat races or something that actually, like Speedway, and everyone get advances to the final or whatever. But big races like Talladega and Daytona, why split? Can you imagine if we get to Bathurst and we do a 250-kilometre stage, a 250 stage, and then a 500 stage? What a joke.
It would be like if we went to Bathurst for the 1,000 and they ran 61 laps, and then they stopped the cars on the main straight for an hour, let's say. There was some work done on the track, and then they ran. Oh, hang on, no, actually, did that a few years ago.
Yeah.
We did win that. The dude and Chaz won that race, but. Yeah, there are some things you don't mess with. And look, this is one of the things where I think Supercars has got the format pretty much right. You have a race on Saturday, you have a race on Sunday at most of the rounds, but you still know that even though there's preliminaries at Sandown, you get the 500k race, and that's going to be later in the year than ever before. They've changed the schedule there. And we still know there's a build-up to the Bathurst 1000, and there is going to be the 1,000 lap race, 161 laps on Sunday. So some things are sacrosanct. Supercars have got it right. Interestingly enough, some people are starting to talk about the race formats in Formula One now, And will they move to a full 3-day program and then perhaps have a preliminary race on the Saturday when they bring out the regulations for the changes that are being made in Formula One sometime in the future? That's something we'll have to keep an eye on. And would that be a good thing? Maybe some people would like it, but change is one of the constants in motor racing, isn't it?
And one of the great things that happened on the weekend, let's have a look at this. Brad Keselowski. Now, I'm not quite sure if Scotty McLaughlin and Fabian Coulthard have any plans for the weekend, but their Team Penske teammate, Brad Keselowski, that's certainly a new way of doing a pit stop.
Look at the guy with the Sunoco shirt having to run around the other side. Here we go again. Just pull on the handbrake, Brad. No, not that much.
And originally the guys thought that that he might have copped a tap coming into pit lane because you're going so fast as you have to come down. But no, he didn't. He did it all by himself.
And he was in the first pit box.
Luckily in the first pit box. And the way that he stopped the car was perfect. It was in the right spot. The crowd loved it.
Is Keselowski now going to be the favourite for the Dakar to Paris rally? We don't know. It could be run in reverse.
There you go.
You look flummoxed.
Peter Brock told me that word. I've never heard it before.
Flummoxed.
So that is NASCAR, and we did get a comment here from Matt Coenders, and he said, I like how the Talladega workers thank the fans on exit, real appreciation of the fans. And they do that at quite a couple of events over there in the US, Matt, and a good comment, mate.
And NASCAR does that on the telecast too. When they sign off, the first thing they do is say thanks to the fans.
And NHRA actually thanks the fans at every event
so
just prior to
Thank you, fans. To everyone who's watching now on Facebook, thank you, fans.
Feed is perfect at this stage, guys. Works for the Super Stadium truck.
Right.
Feed is perfect. Our feed, we're not buffering today, I don't believe.
Really?
We've gone to great expense.
Have we gone to 5G, have we?
No, but...
4G? 3G?
Works for stadium trucks, not long races. Yes, you're right, David Driscoll. Hello, Doug Gordon. We're getting people joining in, which is terrific, and welcome to those people that are tuning in for the first time. Episode 2. We're amateurs at this. We're still working our way through it.
We're ironing out the kinks.
But we're here to talk to you. We're listening, and we're looking at everything you're saying as well. And for the person that's asked about what do we think of the Mustangs, Richard Webb, we will be getting on to the Mustangs later in the show.
Richard, tell us what you think of the Mustangs. Who do you think is going to win this weekend? Are you a Mustang fan? Are you a Holden fan?
He's got an FPR logo as his...
okay. All right. Say no more.
Yeah, righto.
We know where this is leading.
Yeah, I can tell you where that'll go. Tim Soldatis, Gerald, nice to listen to a straight-up motorsport show. Yes, we're not employed by the same company that most of the other blokes commentating are, and we'll never say anything about
employed?
The Mustang.
What's that mean? I was just driving past.
Now, next up, we're still in America. We're going to go and check through the world. We're going to move fast because we're only here for an hour. Then we've got the ambulances turning back up and taking us home, Philip.
Paramedics on standby.
Drag racing, 4 wide, NHRA Z-Max Dragway in Charlotte on the weekend, and let's roll the tape of defending.
But if I'm Steve Torrance, I can see it in the attitude, but he's been backing it up.
Steve Torrance taking his first win of the year. And Torrance had a fantastic season last year.
The winless streak
about
of
10
only just
times.
5
He won the
races
last
has
6
come to a
races in a
stop
row.
for Steve Torrance.
But
377,
hadn't quite won
323,
this year.
and it's
He did it
lane
on the
1 all the
weekend,
way to the
and,
finish line.
The Capco team were happy. Torrance, though, I don't think
he
he'd
talked
been
the talk,
pleased
and now
about
he walked the walk. Steve Torrance, you got
one
that chip off your shoulder, getting the first win of the 2019 season. When you think back on today and everything that unfolded, what do you think the key moment was?
I don't know, man. I'll tell you, these Capco boys are just bad to the bone. These people out here buying Harleys and all that, but we're out here stacking trophies, so let them do what they want to do. We're bad hombres. We didn't do our job for the first 4, 5, 6 races, thank you. But we got our minds right, we got our attitude right, and we ain't here to play games. We're here to win races and go home to Texas and work. And I can't say enough for all these guys that back us up. Mac Tools, Redline Oil, every one of them guys that's working at home today at Capco. That's why we're out here, because of them boys. Thank y'all.
Yep, and rather heated bloke. He's
he was.
Little angry guy. For those that don't know about Steve Torrance, he's hell of a story. He actually started racing super comp and alcohol dragsters and the like as a 17-year-old. Got cancer and really suffered badly and went through treatment for that. And originally it didn't look good, but he got through that. He got into Top Fuel, and just a couple of years ago he was exercising and been at the gym and had been exercising and thought, hang on, I don't feel too good. Went to the doctor. He'd actually just had a heart attack. Oh. And but he's... You know, he's out there fighting. He works between rounds. He actually sits in the trailer. He talks to the fans as well, but he sits in the trailer and works for Capco, the family business, and they organise pipelining down in Texas. So he works between rounds, making phone calls, organising crews, non-stop. But they party very hard and they win. And last year they won a lot of races, but Mike Salinas, who won the 4-wide in Las Vegas, presented, and it was his first win, presented all of his team with Harley Davidsons on the weekend. So I don't think Torrance was was too happy about that.
Wow. Anyway.
Were you happy?
What would you have, a trophy or a Harley?
Well, I've got a few of them, Philip.
I thought you were going to reach back and get a Harley Davidson back there.
I'd go for the Harley.
Yeah, man.
I've already... Richie Crampton, I'll have a Harley next time, please, mate. So that was in Top Fuel. Let's go and look at Funny Car, and here's the Funny Car final at 4 wides. Yeah, no, that wasn't the Funny Car final.
No, it
at the
wasn't.
4 wides.
I'm no expert, but that was not a Funny Car.
No.
We'll press on.
Well, so we should say that Sean Langdon did take the win. That was clip 06, guys. Sean Langdon did take the win in Funny Car. It was his 17th driver to have actually won Funny Car and Top Fuel. Have we got it now, boys?
No, I think we're moving on.
Well,
we've got it. We do have Funny Cars.
Here we go. Funny Car final. And Langdon in the Global Electronic Technologies Toyota Camry. A good field there in the final. Robert Height looked to have it, but then something happened at the end and he only slowed to 240-odd mile an hour. So Langdon and the Kalita team took the win. And as I said, so Langdon's a former champion in Top Fuel, and it's his first ever NHRA national event win in Funny Car, and he's the 17th driver to win in both classes. So we can cut that vision now, guys. We're not listening to Sean, which... Richard and JR find that funny. But he's the 17th guy to have a win in both major classes. Quite an achievement.
Yeah.
So that's the NHRA. Now, a bit of drag racing over there in the US too. Nostalgia racing. Now, I stumbled across this. Nostalgia funny car racing is becoming very big, even here in Australia as well. And on the weekend, there was a race in Mocan, Missouri, where Ronald Ooms was doing a burnout. And let's go to the video, guys, if we can, 007. Doing the burnout, and bang, the guy's got out of shape, crossed into the centre section of the racetrack, and Phil, that car has impaled itself on the guardrail.
It wasn't a great weekend for parallel parking, but Brad Keselowski probably saw that run and thought, I see nothing wrong with this.
Let's have a look at it again. Here it goes. Yep, absolutely impaled itself.
Is that what they call running loose?
Yeah, no, running on empty. And but Ronald actually got hurt in that. He
that's not
broke
funny.
No, it's not funny. He did break his leg in 5 spots because the guardrail penetrated the body between the rear tyre and also the engine header. And got the chassis and bent the chassis and trapped his leg in there. So
it was guardrail coming into the rally car that caused the injuries to Robert Kubica in that rally some years ago before he made his comeback to Formula 1.
Well, one of the biggest impalings we've ever seen, I don't know if you remember it, actually was Paul Stocker? John Stocker. Paul Stocker at the Calder Park Thunderdome with a HQ Holden coming off turn number 4, slow loop down onto the grass and then impaled the HQ on the pit lane concrete wall, and the concrete wall went all the way over and pushed over and did break his ankle as well.
Yo, those were the days. That was a long time ago when we were watching 40-something HQs race at the Thunderdome. Geez, we're old.
Oh, wish they'd bring back the Thunderdome and HQ racing.
It's a great night out.
We might get some highlights up in a couple of weeks. Excuse me, from some old videotapes of some HQs going around the Thunderdome, because they were fantastic.
Yeah,
weren't they?
Crazy racing. Okay, let's stay in the States.
Okay.
On board. We'll move states. We'll go up and a bit to the left to Indiana. It's the 1st of May. What do you think of when you say May in motorsports? You think about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There was a test there last week, and a number of cars went out. It was interrupted by bad weather. Let's see some of the vision. The cars moving out. There's Fernando Alonso out there in the Andretti entry. First time out in a Chev. Had problems with the battery. Cars, of course, RHR going around. Fastest man on the for the test was former race winner Takuma Sato, 226.993, ahead of Ed Carpenter in the Chev, and Spencer Pickett, the youngster, also driving a Chevrolet. So it looks like there's going to be a great rivalry continuing at the Speedway at the end of the month between the Chevy teams and the Honda teams. No obvious favourite at the moment, and of course before we actually get to going to practice and some of the traditional carburation day and so on and bump day for the Indy 500, we'll have the road course race, the Indianapolis Grand Prix, which will be coming up the weekend after next, and Will Power, I guess, will be the favourite for that. Will was 4th fastest in the practice session at the Speedway this time around, ahead of Ryan Hunter-Ray. Fernando Alonso only did 29 laps before he had that problem with the battery. And for those of you who haven't been on the internet tonight or haven't been reading social media while you've been preparing to watch us on the Motorsport Show, it's just been confirmed in Europe that Fernando Alonso will be splitting with the Toyota WEC team after the Le Mans 24-hour race. He'll be trying to win that race again. That will be his last sports car race for Toyota. His seat will be taken by Brendan Hartley, formerly of Porsche. There was some suggestion that Hartley was going to be sticking with Porsche for the Formula E program. Interestingly enough, the release from Toyota did mention that there would be other opportunities for Fernando Alonso within the Team Gazoo framework that Toyota runs its motorsport programs under. So whether that means he'll be doing something towards this Dakar program, will he be doing something in WRC? We don't know. Of course, we've already heard from Fernando Alonso that somewhere down the road he'd like to do a Bathurst 1000.
Well, and General Motors seem to have hooked into Fernando pretty well, haven't they? Because he won the Daytona 24-hour race with Jordan Taylor and the Cadillac team a couple of months ago, Wayne Taylor Racing, and now with Chevrolet at the Indy 500. Let's hope McLaren have a good, reliable car for him and a fast, competitive car as well, because 2 years ago at the Brickyard, he was sensational, first time out on an oval, and he attacked that like a true professional and a seasoned professional, and Alonso was just sensational and led the race. And when the Honda expired, the reaction from the crowd was just amazing. It really, they appreciated seeing a world-class driver and a world champion driver back at the Brickyard, which, like in the 60s, 50s, 60s, all the F1 drivers used to go over and run at the Brickyard. Hasn't happened for so many years, and the 250-odd thousand fans there really appreciated seeing him do it.
Yeah, some drivers don't want to do it. Some Formula 1 drivers have got no interest in going to the Speedway. Webber was one of those guys who said that he never wanted to go oval track racing. There was too much out of his control. I asked Nico Hulkenberg once whether he wanted to do that, and he said, nope, ovals have got no interest for him. He was a road racing man through and through, so we'll wait and see whether anybody else takes the jump after Alonso sometime in the future. But will he win the Indy 500? Who can say? Some people would have suggested he wouldn't have won the Le Mans 24-hour race. And last year, pretty much Toyota dominated that race, and they won in a canter. So will he make it 2 wins at Le Mans in next month before he quits sports cars? Watch this space.
The first race at Indy, of course, before the 500, which is on the 26th of May, is the road course race on the 12th of May. So a couple of Aussies, obviously, Will Power, the defending Indy 500 champion in that, and James Davison, also racing in the month of May. It is the month of May.
I reckon watch Dixon. He's a sneaky guy at the Speedway. He's so good around there.
Queensland-born Scott Dixon, yes. We will be watching.
New Zealander. My social media feed right now will be squawking up saying, no, he's definitely a New Zealander.
Talk of Will Power, there's a a great podcast, Dale Jr. download with Dale Earnhardt Jr. Will Powers was on it last week, and it's a terrific show. He talks about winning at the Brickyard and all sorts of stuff, but it's really good. Actually, it's worth a download. The download.
Yeah, Will's good in those circumstances, and a couple of days later, there he was on social media in New York drinking Grange with Lee Diffie.
Surely
hard work if you can get it.
Surely you could afford something a bit better than Grange.
Really?
Oh, Philip.
Okay, if I ever get some of that here at the Motorsport Show, I know that I'll be drinking it with the producers. You can just stick to your soft drinks.
Righto. Now, next up, Philip, we're trucking through here before we get to our agendas, but another motorsport that you are in love with and really enjoy and know everyone.
You must be talking about the World Rally Championship.
The ones that I got to go to the World Rally Championship in Perth once and had no idea what was going on.
Well, the stages are longer than 5 seconds, so your attention span.
And when with some other journos, John Thompson, and I said, okay, well, what time are we dispatching tomorrow morning to go and watch the stage? And he said, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I thought he was actually joking. But he was serious, and so that's the only time I've ever been to.
Well, that's why Kimi Räikkönen, I think he actually walked away from the World Rally Championship to go back to Formula One, because somebody who knows about these things did mention to me once that he was getting to the hotel at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, getting back. Anyway, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't.
At that time, but I wouldn't have been far behind.
Let's go to the videotape. Let's have a look at what was happening in the Rally of Argentina. A great showdown, of course. Toyota looking to get back on top. Ott Tanak didn't really have a very good start to proceedings. And from then on, it was the matter of the Hyundai team coming through and taking their first 1-2 of the season and looking very strong doing it. It is a spectacular event, but Argentina is extraordinarily hard on cars. And there's Terry Neuville on top of his car and on top of the podium, taking the win there in Argentina ahead of Andreas Mikkelsen. 48 seconds was the gap in the end. Sebastian Ogier, what can you say about the man? He just
that
keeps
hasn't
on
already
coming.
been said.
Well, he had a problem with the car. He actually crashed the car on Friday and bent the steering, and he came back and hung in there the whole way to take third place ahead of Chris Meek in the Toyota. Latvala was fifth for Toyota ahead of Danny Sordo. So 3 Hyundais in the top 6, and they're on top of the world at the moment. You'd have to say that Neuville looks like the favourite for the championship.
From who?
You can't discount Ogier. I mean, if you're a rally fan, you had the Sebastian Loeb era, and all those world titles that Sebastian Loeb wins, and finally he decides he's going to slow down and not compete in so many events, and you're waiting for someone else to come through, and it's another guy from France named Sebastian. Ogier is very good. He's a multiple world champion, and he's been from team to team, and he's taken success wherever he's been. He's one of those drivers like Alonso who brings something that little something special to whichever team he's with. But it wasn't all just action on the tracks, because some of the cars took to the scenery rather spectacularly during the course of the event. Here's one of them, Eska-Pekka Lappi.
Who?
In the Citroen. 1, 2, 3. You got a 7.6 from the German judge. Must have been the dismount. Lappi were making light of that accident. That is one destroyed Citroen, and the management of that team has made the point of saying they are sticking with him. They've got a lot of faith in the guy. Of course, he won Rally Finland. He's one of the up-and-coming drivers in the WRC scene. But that was one very second-hand Citroen.
And made about $500 worth of improvements to it.
Not really.
Okay. It was a joke.
But he wasn't the only man.
No.
There was another one. Let's have a look at this. Elfyn Evans, to give it the Welsh pronunciation.
But wait, there's more.
In the M Sport Ford, he went over on Saturday, and that was the end of his event.
How's the rock?
Yeah, they have a lot of very large rock-like objects in Argentina. And watch when he goes off the road, and 1, 2, 3. Now, Ogier had something like that similar happen to him, and he got the thing back on the road. We don't have the vision of that. Try and find it on YouTube. But that's one of the reasons he's so good. He manages just to avoid those disasters, and even when things go wrong, he's able to pull it back onto the road and continue. And in this case, third place, and he gets a lot more points for the WRC.
I loved how it moved the bloody rock. I cannot believe that.
You mean Dwayne Johnson?
How's the size of the thing when it's actually belted it anyway?
Let's have a look again. 1, 2, 3. That's not Dick Johnson. No, it couldn't be Dick Johnson's rock.
Jesus.
That's not the same rock. I don't think it's the same rock, folks.
No. Now, we've got a couple of questions here. Matt Coenders. I hope I'm saying your name right, Matt. Coenders. Who owns Calder Park Thunderdome, and will they ever revive the Speedway? I miss the NASCARs and Oscars. And the Queens or Queers? I'm not sure. The Calder Park Thunderdome is owned by the Bob Jane Corporation still. And sadly, Bob Jane passed away late last year, or grand final day. But there was that the blue within the family as well. The very sad blue between Rodney and his dad Bob, and we're not quite sure where all of that is at. But I believe the corporation still owns it. Will it ever be revived? You know, I feel we had the pleasure of working out there, but I think it was probably 20 years too early. Yeah. You know, it opened in February 1988. I vividly remember walking into the Thunderdome on race day for the first time, walking up the mound and then walking inside, and all of a sudden you could see where 4 MCGs or 5 MCGs could fit. It was amazing first speedway to see here in Australia. But I think it opened in 88. If it had have opened, you know, when satellite television became popular, Fox Sports and NASCAR racing, and when Ambrose went to the US, I think the success of it might have been different. And it was great racing.
Well, early on, it had its own gravity. Fans gravitated towards the sport, and there were teams, the Jones team and the John Sidney team, so many of the teams that they made NASCAR and Oscar. Bruce Williams, who we know from Auto Action, who was a regular there. So many of those drivers for so long just raced at the Thunderdome events, and
John Faulkner, Max Dumsney went from sprint cars into NASCAR racing, and Barry Graham, and of course the Richard Petty experience, the driving school, which is such a massive business in the United States and a huge success over there, started at the Thunderdome with George Elliott and Barry Graham, and the ride program that they had, and then fast track racing, which still goes today, and there's many drivers that take people for rides and fast track racing at racecourses all over Australia. That was started by Marshall Brewer at the Thunderdome. Some great stuff that came out of there, wasn't there?
It was a lot of fun. Kids there in their dressing gowns on Saturday night.
And let's never forget the first night race when Steve Betts convinced Bob Jane to put the lights in, and they lit half of the Thunderdome up, and then brought in some trucks, Musco trucks for the back straight. Remember that? Yeah. And I, at the time, was doing the TV commentary with Alan Grice and John Smales, and I remember the Right Honourable Member for Broadwater, Alan Grice, saying he couldn't believe that they actually did it, and put those lights in from the period they said, right, we're doing it, to when the last race of that season happened, and what a success it was.
It was great. It was a great era. But I don't think we'll ever see the likes of it again. Let's move on. Where should we go next? I know where I've always wanted to go? Azerbaijan.
No, before we go there, let's see. Do you believe Holden has a future in supercars? From Scott Hallinan, given they no longer make any cars anymore. They make cars offshore, General Motors, and I'll say more on where I think Holden will be going later on, perhaps. But I don't think it's onwards and upwards in supercars, but you might see them in something else. Ashley Steers, Aussie race cars were also a favourite at the Thunderdome.
They were. Racing on the pit lane.
Yeah.
That's where it started. Legend cars from the US originally. They had Formula Vs on the dome. We'll get to that later on. Let's move on. Azerbaijan, on the intersection of Asia and Europe.
That well-known Formula One city.
Well, it's a motor racing heartland, and we've got vision for this at the race in Baku on the weekend, and there were all sorts of talking points coming out of that. Look at this move. Look at Daniel Ricciardo. He's just cutting it there, making them all look like donkeys. Come on, boys. No, you can't match. You can't match the Ricciardo. You can't beat the Honey Badger when it comes to those moves.
It is just, he just danced into the weekend knowing it was going to be such a great success.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yes.
Let's find out.
Well, it didn't get off the actual Azerbaijan event didn't get off to a great start on Friday, Philip.
No, it didn't.
Especially for George Russell and Williams.
No, it wasn't a great start for them. Well, look at that. That's a manhole cover, known in those parts of the world as a person hole cover, on Friday that had been dislodged by Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. Significant damage to the bottom of the Williams that pulls to a stop. George gets out of the car. 320 manhole covers had to be re-sighted and checked by the officials, and that pretty much stuffed up a lot of Friday running. And you can see the damage of that car. Now, I'm told the promoters took out, as all promoters do, took out an insurance policy on that. I think Williams will be making a claim for a new tub, and that's going to be north of $500,000 for one of those.
Yeah, that was huge. And the Massey Warrior, Michael Massey, got called into action to check all of those manhole covers.
The race director of Formula One doing a good job.
He is doing a fantastic job and a good bloke too.
What else? So what do you think happened to the car? Did they get it back to the pits? So we got.
It just couldn't get any worse, could it? Like, is this Azerbaijan considering itself like the Grand Prix city of Melbourne?
Doink.
The Montague Street Bridge has claimed the Williams.
Doink.
Like, I mean, it just couldn't have got much worse, could it?
No, it couldn't have. Let's see it again. We can't go in car because that's not operational. And it just didn't. Boink. Yeah, got to let the tyres down on that track, boys.
And the funny thing about that, though, Philip, was that it also wrecked the crane.
Yeah.
And so the crane started pissing oil all over the...
Hydraulic fluid into the car.
Such good stuff.
$2 million F1 car full of hydraulic fluid. What do you think happened to the driver of the truck? What would have become of him? Would he have been looking for a new job come the weekend?
Well, no. He was keeping an eye on the time and headed off to London.
For what?
We believe he ran in the
London there he is.
Marathon. Ben, his name was, Big Ben. He was going along okay, and then...
Doink.
My God.
We can edit that out. That'll be all right, won't it?
Yeah, it'll be all right.
It'll polish out.
But how is that? That is fantastic.
What are the odds?
10-1.
Yeah.
Righto. And then race time, Philip.
It did. The cars took to the track eventually on Sunday. And, look, you've got to say, what can you say about Mercedes-Benz at the moment? Bottas just edged pole position away from Lewis Hamilton, and he took control of the race. And at the moment, you've got to say they're just making every poster winner of Mercedes-Benz. Ferrari are challenging. There's a swap of positions between the two Ferraris. Oh, Grosjean, what are you doing? They re-signed him. I can't believe that. Anyway, there was a fight for the minor positions, and Ricciardo's weekend went from bad to worse when he went up the escape road. Charles Leclerc fighting back, but once again, 4 times in a row, a 1-2 for Mercedes-Benz. And there's Lewis Hamilton congratulating his nemesis at the moment and teammate Valtteri Bottas.
So that's they've swapped positions. They've got one each. Who's leading the points?
Bottas.
By
not much.
Would he have got a point for a fastest lap
in Melbourne?
So is that the difference?
I'm going to go with yes. I didn't check the points. I should have actually done that before we started our little program tonight.
We've got a question here from Dean Whitchurch saying, do you think Renault will grow to be a winning team, and has Danny killed his chance at a title?
Yes, I think that Renault will become a winning team, and so far as this year is concerned, yes, Danny has killed his chances of winning a title. Look, Renault in a rebuilding phase. That team was previously Lotus. When they took that team over, it was, I think, under 250 staff, and that's on the side of just building the car. Renault way back in, they built their engines in Paris and at Viry-Châtillon, and Enstone is where they build the cars. I'm told they're up to about 700 plus now. There's 1,000 at Mercedes-Benz. There's 1,000 people at Mercedes-Benz, 900 at Ferrari. And that's why they're hard to beat. So Renault, yes, they will. They are serious about Formula One. They will build a winning team. Will it happen during the time that Daniel is there? I don't know. It's hard to say. But he will go better. He hasn't had a good time so far this season. But he didn't... just what I was about to say, things couldn't get worse.
They got worse.
They got worse.
And how's the crunch there?
Yeah.
Didn't look too bad. Yeah, Daniel, of course, just wanted to hide. But what about the damage on the car?
On the Rosso?
She's certainly destroyed the floor there.
Don't Renaults have reversing sensors?
Apparently not, but they might be going to fit him for the next one. Reverse camera for Daniel, the next development, says Kingsley Edgar.
Yeah, I think that might be the case.
Former Holden Racing Team and Gibson Motorsport and Nissan Motorsport employee, yes.
3 grid spot penalty for Ricardo for that incident for the next race at Barcelona.
And lost his no-claim bonus as well, of course.
3 points on his licence.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's it for Grand Prix racing at the moment. But Phil, they said this year would be exciting. They changed the cars to make the racing better with the wings.
In F1?
Yes, and it's crap. What is going on?
A couple of things. A couple of things are going on. Well, Mercedes-Benz have had 4-1-2s. That's never happened in the history of the sport before. Not even in '88 when McLaren was dominating and they won all the races except for one. But part of that is down to Ferrari. And Ferrari should have won in Bahrain. Charles Leclerc had that race shot to pieces and was probably composing his victory speech. And he had that mechanical problem, which is very rare. And then this time around, unfortunately, he crashed in qualifying. And that set off a chain of events that meant he wasn't going to be up the front. And what can you say? So the racing hasn't been great between those two. And I don't hold a huge amount of optimism for the next race in Spain. A circuit to Catalunya is not a circuit that gives itself a lot to overtaking. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Mercedes-Benz 1-2. But by the same token, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Ferrari 1-2. Or even a Red Bull win. I think it's going to be close between the teams, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of overtaking. Qualifying will be absolutely critical. But you've got to say at the moment, Mercedes-Benz are not beating themselves. And Ferrari, unfortunately, there's been a driving error from Leclerc, and Vettel just doesn't seem to be able to get on terms with the Mercedes-Benzes in the races.
Well, let's hope it gets better because it's been crap. And it really shouldn't be the way it is. Righto, we're moving along, Phil, because we've been here quite a while already. But the big news in Australian motorsport in the last week has been, and for those just joining us, Phil and I are actually been under the weather. Both of us, my boyfriend and I.
Just good friends, business partners. Well, not even that.
Nothing wrong with that. And so we're struggling a little bit here, but Ford Mustang's had its wings clipped in supercars. It hasn't been revealed, but I believe that the front under tray has been trimmed by 13 mil from 78 to 65 millimetres. Also believe 3.5 mil's been knocked off the gurney as well for off the rear gurney. Let's have a look at...
hang on a second. Wait. No.
That's how fast the Mustangs have been this year.
Wrong Mustang.
Right.
Gerald, it's not everything's drag racing, you know.
Now, the decision to change the cars, and I know the Ford fans have been up in arms over this, but Supercars engaged a company called D2H Engineering, which are in both the United States and also in England, and they work with premier organisations and race teams. And they CAD camming, CFD, which is computational fluid dynamics. They have analysed the data from races and also the cars as well. I believe they've CFD'd the cars, and in consultation with supercars, they've come up with how much things need to be trimmed back. So it's the science. It's not guesswork, and it's not, hang on. It's a technical parity formula.
Yeah.
And even those supercars somehow have come out and said, our aero testing was the closest it's ever been. The cars are the closest, and all of the teams have signed off. The other manufacturers or teams, or the manufacturers don't get to sign off on the other cars. They don't get to see it. They in fact play no part in the process. The cars are taken away while the aero testing is done by a team. So people have this misunderstanding about how it's actually done.
Yeah.
And I know from past experiences, Peter Harker, the technical guy from Holden's, kept aside and away from the testing and not allowed to do anything. So, they've got it horribly wrong, by the sounds of it. If an independent organisation comes in, does all of the data analysis, does CFD and everything, comes along and says, hang on, this needs a bit of changing going on here.
Yeah, 9-1 in the opening 10 races of the season. And look, the Supercars is a parity formula. It's a formula of technical parity. It's not you don't see sporting parity. No. And the best example of sporting parity I can think of is the British Touring Car Championship, where if you win a race, you get I think it's down this year. I think it's 57 kilos of ballast if you win a race. So if you're watching Donington Park on the weekend, you would have seen after the first race, Colin Turkington would have been slabbed with 50+ kilos of ballast for race 2. And it becomes a challenge to the teams to manage the way the ballast is rolled out through the course of the season. Supercars ain't like that. And Supercars is all about technical parity.
David Driscoll's come up, but why this year? It's the inconsistency that's the issue. Ask Mercedes and Nissan or Ford last year. Well, Ford won the championship to start with. So you can't have to ask them. They actually won. But there was the change to the Nissans and the Fords last year after the first race at Adelaide for the Grand Prix. They were all allowed to put carbon roofs and bonnets on.
Yeah.
So that was made, and then obviously COG is cropped up again. But why the change now? Because there's such a discrepancy in the results. That's that's what the data shows, and it's scientific. It's not guesswork. And David Driscoll says 9-1 because T8 are much slower this year. No, and it's the deal's taken across all of the cars. The data is looked across all of the cars so that you don't get a dodgy outcome. It's done so that all of the factors are taken into consideration.
Yeah. From the fans' point of view, I see what he's saying, because Triple Eight, the Red Bull Holden Racing Team, have been the closest challengers. They are the two best equipped teams in the pit lane, and I don't think there's any question. And I think the members of the team have even admitted this, that the single spring, the linear spring that's come in this year has affected Triple Eight and probably Jamie Whincup more than it has most people. But they're not a bunch of dummies. They'll get on top of this. It's just a matter of will they be on top of it in Perth, or will they be watching the Penske Mustangs, maybe even the Tickford Mustangs, run off into the distance again. And as we said at the top of the show, race format's different this year. They're going to be racing under lights, and the track has been resurfaced. So yeah, as much as some teams will get that right, a couple of teams will get that wrong.
Absolutely. Now, we haven't shown, but we do have the first photos of the rear wing, the changes to the spill plates as well. And on the left, you can see the car of Lee Holdsworth with that massive split. And everyone had a joke about it when it first happened. Now on the right is Chaz Mostert's super cheap auto car. And that spill plate has had a huge chop.
It has. It's much different. In fact, the teams have actually gone around to making new ones, to the point that I actually spoke to Ben Nightingale at DJR Team Penske today, Shell Helix Racing, and he made the point that the cars have actually shipped all the way to Western Australia with the old ones fitted, because they hadn't had time to make the new ones and fit them to the car. So they'll take them over separately and fit them tomorrow morning. So there'll be a bunch of keen photographers will be out there in pit lane getting the first pics of the new rear wing set up on the Shell cars.
Well, they've already seen it here on the Motorsport Show.
They're the Tickford cars. Thank you, Tickford.
Scott Hallinan, everyone blames Triple Eight for the changes, but it's not true, so I hate towards them. Good point, Scotty, but everyone hates a winner.
Well, they've been talking about in other sports as well, whether you should boo people or not. But it's good to have passion in the sport.
I have, the passion. I don't mind the booing either. I was at the football last Monday when apparently Gary Ablett was being booed in Melbourne for Geelong. I didn't actually hear it. I have no problems with, passion and booing.
But when you
not abusive.
When you go to the football, you get booed, and you're just a spectator.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul Rogers, I'm a Ford guy, but for some of the lower level Ford teams to be outperforming the top tier Holden teams, there's a clear discrepancy with the Mustang versus the rest. And you're spot on, Paul. And that's where the taking the data across all of the cars comes into play. So there you go. Dale Rogers. Dale chirping in here and might have a finger in the Ford pie, Dale. T8 were the only major team that went slower at Phillip Island last round. The Race Talk did the data and all the teams were quicker. T8 over the weekend were slower, yes, but I think the Ford teams were quite a bit more quicker than the Commodore teams, if that's correct.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, Dale.
Hi, Dale.
He's one of life's great blokes.
He is. All right, let's move on because we've got an anniversary to mark.
Yeah, and gee, the show has been getting away from us. But, 25th anniversary today, Phillip. Where were you 25 years ago in about 2 hours' time?
I was at home with a 9-day-old son. And I remember that because he just turned 25. Hi, Mac. I hope you're watching your dad. Yeah, and I just remember everything dragged on into the middle of the night because the telecast went on and on and on. We of course had the British telecast, and the Italian telecast actually stayed hovering over the scene. And I know which one I would have rather watched. And it was only later that year that I went to work for Motorsport News, and I got to talk to some of the people who were actually at the circuit when all that happened. And I've become conversational with some of them since, and some of the things that have been said and some of the stories that came out of that weekend. Let's not forget that it all started on Friday. There was a huge shunt. Rubens Barrichello was lucky to get out of that car when he crashed in practice. And then, of course, tragically on Sunday there was a fatal accident at Tosa when Roland Ratzenberger had his front wing break and run off the track at over 300 kilometres an hour and was killed instantly. And that had a great effect on Senna, and we saw what happened on Sunday due to circumstances that I don't think have ever been adequately explained. What are your memories of that day?
I was actually watching at home. I was in bed, as you do, watching the Grand Prix at the time. And I remember seeing the accident and not a lot of movement going on. And I thought, he's in trouble. And, of course, the official walked up to the car and didn't do a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
You know, he knew at first sight. And, yeah, you knew. I picked, you know, I knew straight away. It was very, very sad. And, you know, I mean, look, Phil, it's motor racing, and being involved in the sport, and when you know many of the drivers, if you watch your friend or guys that I've worked with, and most of them are very good friends of mine, they get into a car and they go off into a race or go off in practice or whatever, driving at fast speeds, if you're not thinking that something could happen despite all of the safety precautions taken, if you don't think something can happen, you're kidding yourself. And does it make you not blasé? I mean, I get sad about it, but it was sad to see it. I was very sad when Dale Earnhardt passed away 6 years later, 6 or 7 years later. If you don't think he's not going to come back, there's something you shouldn't be watching the sport.
No, that's right. It is terrible. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of reading about this over the last couple of days, preparing for tonight. One of the things that came out of the coroner's report in Italy was Senna died of a head injury when he was struck in the head by a suspension part that came out off the car. Other than that, he had no injuries. There was no broken bones. There was no bruising. The safety features of that car at that time performed as they were supposed to do. The freakish part was that the front suspension broke and hit him in the head, and of course that's what killed him. And look, there is something that I found today on the net, and I just wanted to share that with you. And one of the things Ayrton Senna said, I'm just reading this on my laptop, so I'm sorry for not looking at the camera. If I ever have an accident that costs my life, I hope it happens in one instant.
Wow,
so that's a little bit. Perhaps he even he foresaw what was coming. And some of the other things that haven't been widely reported about what was going on that weekend, I'm told it was the week prior to the race that he and Alain Prost sat down and made their peace. But there was turmoil in Senna's life because Leonardo, his brother, had flown in from Brazil to try and talk him out of becoming engaged to his girlfriend because the family didn't approve. So with everything that was going on in Formula One, and don't forget he'd driven in 2 races for Williams at that point and hadn't finished either of those races. In the race in Japan, he was out on the first lap. He hadn't scored any points. At a press gathering on the Thursday, he said that he had a 14-race World Championship, not a 16-race World Championship. And sadly, he never got to compete in those 14 races.
Yeah, very, very sad. And 25 years today, or tonight, and we will remember the late, great Ayrton Senna, and God rest his soul. We did have a few comments from people. Lachlan Craven was on his way back from a school camp, and a rumour got around and it stopped, and he didn't believe it, so he asked the bus driver who gave him the Herald Sun on the day, which was the front page of that was pretty much black. Dean Whitchurch, and I to remember well, shocked and stunned. So, yeah. Let's hope we never see it again, but it is motorsport. And
well, just look at the strides that have been made in safety since then. It's
absolutely
gigantic strides. And it was such a terrible weekend, and of course Vettelinger's crash at Monaco a few weeks later, but that was really a reset for the sport, and the safety advances that have been made through the hard work. Every time I see something on the media that says it was a lucky escape, there's no luck involved in this. It's a lot of smart people working very hard to save good drivers' lives.
We're getting close to the end of the show. We've got Rob and Danny from Fuzzy TV here as well. And
they've got another show, haven't they?
They have got another show. It's a great show. It's on 7 Mate over the summer months. And we'll just like to play a little bit of a promo for Workshop Wars. 8 over the summer season, and it's also, Rob, is it online? On 7 Plus. On 7 Plus, season 2 has happened, and going for 10 episodes, and going for season 3 next summer.
So if you like your cars fast and with at least 8 cylinders, no hybrids, Rob. No hybrids. No hybrids. We'll get there though. We'll see. 1,000 horsepower hybrids. No hybrids.
We are at the end of the show, and coming to the end of the show.
Coming to the end of my voice.
We talk about Ayrton Senna's death. One of the things I haven't spoken about today, Phil, but we do have the coroner's report here into the very sad death of Adelaide drag racer Chris Stewart, who died in early 2017 at South Coast Raceway in Portland, in Victoria. And perhaps this is a discussion for another day because we need to talk about safety and everything. But one of the points that the coroner made was that he found that the Australian National Drag Racing Association, in certifying the Portland track fit for purpose without undertaking a thorough inspection of it, actually contributed to the death of Chris Stewart. And we'll need to get some comment from Andrew on that. They've been very quiet since that was handed down at the end of March. And I think, it'd be nice to hear some words from a sanctioning body. There's also dramas going on up in Sydney. There is a big race on this weekend with the 400 Thunder Series, but there's massive arguments going on over there about the safety of the track with the catch nets at the end of the track, with one team, the JSS Racing team of Sam Fennick, who won up there last time, went through the nets. They've had an independent investigation into the track, and they're saying that the new nets won't help, and there's some arguments going on. So, and that's an IHRA track. So there's a lot of arguing going on up there at the moment, and we know the Top Fuel team's all pulled out of Willowbank over the Easter weekend. So coroner's report over in Perth will be released soon into the tragic death of young Anita Board as well. So fair bit of arguing and stuff going on in drag racing over safety.
There is.
So we need to get some of that.
And in the meantime, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, and there's plenty coming up. There's a lot going on in the next couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, on to happier things. The next show is May 15th, Phil, and we're going to talk about that show. We will be talking, obviously, we'll see what happened in Perth.
We will be talking supercars, MotoGP this weekend in Spain. The week after that, there'll be Formula One also in Spain. Well, I don't know why they run their 2 Grand Prix week to week, but they do. And there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff. We'll also have the road race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway around the golf course down the Fifth Fairway. That'll be great.
Around the golf course. Yes, around the golf course.
Let's see how the Aussies go in that. So we'll be back on 8:30 Wednesday.
8:30 Wednesday, the 15th of May. We thank you very much. And again, thank you to Murray Anderson and Tony DeFelice for accommodating us. We haven't got a lot of budget, but we've got a couple more banners this time. Also, don't forget, online as well is bench racing with the Dude, Paul Morris and Russell Ingle. That was a good show. A lot more polished than us. A lot more production money. Those blokes have got squillions as well. Thanks
more than you. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
I'm off to see my doctor.
But thanks very much. We'll catch you in 2 weeks' time.
Bye.